are you? How the heck are you?
We're going to do a podcast.
So let's get a little deeper into your story, shall we? Who are you?
Well,
that becomes a sticky wicket. You know, what's your juice? Let's get back on track. You've got a lot of things going on. What is it that you're curious about? You know, what do you do?
Run the world.
Right? Well,
like, let's crumble up some philosophy for you.
boom, 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 boom. It's been a whirlwind for you. What is it that supercharges you about this? Lots going on, lots coming up. Or is that too many stuff? Did I ask too many questions?
No, not too many questions.
Hi, beautiful woman.
Hello, how are you?
I am well. I'm happy now that I've been fed.
I know you are.
You know how I roll.
Yes.
You know my thing. So Jen, as we roll into our conversation, I have been thinking about your business. Actually, you know what? We're going to take a pause there because I'm going to let you introduce yourself to folks because not everybody may not know you. So who are you, what do you do, and why do you do it?
So my name is Gen Brough. I own Fink Perras Insurance Agency. I like to golf and eat at Mimi's, and Mary will tell you I like wine. So that's all you really need to know about me, I guess. I'm born and raised in East Hampton. I live in East Hampton with my husband and my 2 children. I run a business in East Hampton, and I am, I think very committed to the city of East Hampton, like Burns, and seeing it be successful and the people in the city being successful. So that's my story.
And it's a wonderful story. So as I was saying, I was thinking about you and your business, and we talked a little bit about women in a male-dominated sector, and that is you for sure. And I was trying to think about my life last night, as I was worrying about stools for the
The seating stools,
yes.
not the other.
Yes. The stools that we were going to have for the interviewing. But anyway, as you can see, that fell through. But anyhow, I was thinking about my life, and starting off, I've always chosen things that were male-dominated. I didn't do that on purpose, but I just happened to fall into that. So when my very early career, I was an architectural and civil draftsman, and my very first job was with a civil engineer. And we did subdivisions, road projects, and that sort of thing. And it was very exciting, but I was on construction sites a lot. And doing surveying and stuff, and it was always male-dominated, and I was in my 20s. So that's kind of funny, actually. But, started there, and then I graduated into, I ended up working at the Aetna, and although I was a corporate interior designer, project manager person, the folks, and most of the designers were female, but all of the trades folks that I depended on were men. And that was very interesting. And then the chamber world is in our immediate region. It's really very unusual that we have like 11 or 12 chambers that are right in this immediate area. It's very unusual that all of them are women, because that's not the case necessarily across the country. So I've been kind of fortunate, but it's starting to morph a little bit. There's a couple chambers, Northampton and Amherst, at this time have male. So I wonder if their struggles are different because they're in a female-dominated atmosphere at the moment.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if you have an amazing story, being the owner of Fink Perras Insurance Agency. You're swimming in a male-dominated ocean, which presents, I'm sure, you with enormous challenges. We've actually talked about that here and there. But you always seem to swim in that ocean with grace, dignity, and determination. And you don't give up. No, and again, too, it's that determination and resilience with grace that I admire so much about you.
Thank you. I spend a lot of time reminding myself that I belong in the room.
I know.
So as you can see, my face is getting a little red because I get very nervous talking in front of people. But when I walk into a room, 90% of the time, I'm one of 2 to 3 women in the room. And a lot of time, the owners of these companies have either inherited them from their families. Very seldom do you see that it's somebody who started from scratch. So the assumption is when I walk in the room that I'm somebody's daughter, and then I walked into the job. And I literally have to say to myself when I'm walking into these meetings with people who have, maybe a lot more experience than me, a little more worldly than me, more money than me, I have to say to myself, I belong here, because I worked for it. So I've been in the industry for 30 years, and I started as a customer service rep. I was just somebody who was always very curious and very driven. It wasn't because I was trying to be the president of the company, I just loved learning new things. So it was constantly, this is broken, well, we'll figure out how to fix it. We lost our bookkeeper, well, I'll do the bookkeeping, like how hard can it be? And that's really what drove me to get to places that I've been in my career, not simply because I wanted to be the owner of the company. It was never on my radar. It just kind of morphed into that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's amazing that it just kind of morphed into that. And what a spectacular position to be in.
Yeah.
Really.
You
worked so hard to get it.
Well, I consider myself very fortunate. I don't use the word lucky because when you use lucky, that means that you had nothing to do with it. I like to use fortunate because I was in the right place at the right time. The people I bought the business from did not have any children. They were ready to retire, and I was ready to take on the huge amount of debt and responsibility that I have.
That's exactly where I was going with that.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
no small feat.
No. I just didn't think about it.
I know.
I didn't think about it.
Well, good. I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you didn't. And then on top of all of that undercurrent, I'm sorry that I'm choking, but I had something down the wrong way. The insurance industry has always been in constant change and flux, right? Do you find that it's even more so now, or is it the same?
Oh God, no. One of my people that work with me, Deb, we were just talking about it outside. It's getting worse. It has changed exponentially in the past 5 years. COVID I really hate the word pivot, but I have to use it all the time, really made us pivot because we were a very paper-based organization. We used computers, we used things to rate, but it was still very paper-based. COVID hit, everybody had to go home. We have, now everything is paperless because we could and we had to do it. It has really made our industry change even more. There's some water there.
Thank you.
Because customers have gotten used to us being available 24/7. If you don't answer an email within an hour, and I know I have other counterparts here in other industries that feel the same way. If you don't answer an email within an hour, they will email you back or they will call the office and say, so-and-so didn't get back to me. They have the opportunity to go online and get a quote for insurance at 2 o'clock in the morning. They don't care that they may not be buying the right product for what they're doing. They just know they checked that, off their list of to-dos. So we have continually had to adapt to be more efficient, to be available 24/7 to a certain degree. Even being here, Deb and I are checking emails, we're working. You never get to detach. The other thing that really changes with our industry is that insurance has become a commodity versus a service. It's a price point for people. Again, Deb and I were having this conversation about a client, purchasing a piece of property and not understanding that there's a cost associated with that when it comes to your insurance. They just don't get that part of it. The commodity piece of it is what's really made it challenging.
Okay, so as we move into our areas of discussion, first of all, leading off with leading people through change and uncertainty. I'm curious, I know this is a question that I've asked our other two guests, but I'm wondering what you believe are the qualities that are essential for leaders during times of change.
So I purposely was checking off what other people said so I wouldn't repeat it. So for me, I'm going to focus on resiliency. During change, the people that work for you don't want to see you cry. I'm sorry, Marissa.
I do it in a conference room.
Yeah, right. But again, when things happen, you have to be the calmest person in the room.
Yep.
whether you are on the inside or not, that's what the people that work for you expect you to do.
They need you to do.
And they need you to do. It's no different than having children. You know, they don't want to see mom and dad scared. They don't want to see their family, you know, the people that they love scared. And, you know, when you run an organization, that's the same thing. They don't want to see you scared. You know, you have somebody who's worked with you for 25 years and they decide to quit and change careers. It took me a long time to not be scared of that. And people will come to me and go like, you're not upset that so-and-so's leaving. I'm like, no, because that person is following what is important to them. I don't want people to stay here if they're not happy here. I'm happy for that person. And they look at me like, oh my God, why aren't you freaking out? Well, because I'm not going to freak out about that. I'm going to figure out how we're going to go forward and how we're going to, you know, pivot and how we're going to figure out how to do this position differently. And it's just an opportunity to make a change, as opposed to going, oh no, this person's leaving, we're going to fall apart.
Right.
So
Nice. How do you prepare your team for upcoming change and uncertainty?
a lot of communication. A lot of communication.
That's going to come with the theme, right?
Yeah. You know, a lot of training, a lot of communication, a lot of discussion one-on-one. You know, my door is always open, and if people need to come in and ask me a question about what's going on, sometimes I can share with them what I have in my head, sometimes I can't. Sometimes I just have to say it's a work in progress and this is what we're working towards, and more info to come. My industry, there's a lot of people retiring. So the average age of people in my industry is in their 60s. So I've had, I think, 6 retirements in the past 2 years.
I'm looking this way and I saw a lot of faces go, oh.
I've had 6 people retire in the past 2 years. And important people in our organization who had a lot of knowledge. And, you know, having those conversations with the current staff saying, you know, so-and-so's leaving, like they know so much. Right. But, like, you've been here, you know this much. Like, we're just going to keep building on that. So just communicating to that to them, and letting them know that they can handle it, that they have this, that I believe in them, and that they can handle it.
Right, and that's a beautiful thing. I believe in you. That's a powerful statement.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I love that. How do you balance the need for stability with the need for change? Yeah, because there's that unforeseen, oh my God, this thing all of a sudden it kind of comes out of nowhere, and you're like, okay, didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
But then you are looking down the line and you're going, oh, this is coming.
How do I answer that? So I'm always thinking, I don't sleep. So I've always.
I was looking at Jen.
Yeah, you were totally staring at me the whole time.
I'm hard to sleep. I don't get this.
Yeah. Because I'm always thinking, and I'm always thinking of ideas. Like when I go to events like this, I come up with ideas from talking to people about things we could be doing differently, things that we have to do differently going down the line. I don't want to be the type of organization that is constantly changing and trying new things. There's certain things that are very important to us. Customer service is very important to us. Yeah. Taking care of my people is very important to me. I won't sacrifice that simply to follow the next trend. I just won't do it because I want to stay true to who I am as an owner.
Yes, I love that.
So.
Nice. How about, how do you handle resistance to change within your team?
So when I started in the business, I was a young whippersnapper that, you know, walked in there and said, how come we have to use a red pen? Why can't we use a blue pen? This is so dumb. You know, that's who I was then. And then over time I realized there's a reason why we use the red pen, because it was for this very specific thing. And then I learned my lesson. And what I found is the people that are the most resistant to change are the ones that have been doing the same thing for a very long time, and they're just afraid of it being different because they become irrelevant and not needed anymore.
Yes.
So again,
that's a deep well right there.
You know, I've had a lot of staff over the years who are a lot older than me and had a lot more experience than me. And when I would come in and be like, let's do it this way, it's faster, you know, work smarter, not harder. Let's do it this way, let's try it, let's see how it goes. And, you know, initially there's the resistance, and they're like, this is stupid. Like, literally, they would look at me and go, this is stupid. And I'd be like, okay, well, let's just try it. Let's see what happens. Let's just try it. And, you know, 90% of the time, they would realize that it made more sense to do it that way. And then 10% of the time, they would decide it was time for them to move on. And that was okay too. Because my responsibility is to the organization as a whole, to make sure it moves forward. My responsibility is to continue to be able to afford to employ the people that work for me so that they have a quality of life. My responsibility is not to just make one person happy. So that's how I try to always look at it. So change is hard, people don't always like it. Sometimes the changes I make aren't always the best, but in the end, my goal is always to make sure that this company is viable and stays around for a long time. So that's how I try to look at it. There's going to be some fallout, and that's okay. But, I think my friends at the bank understand that better than anything with, all the mergers they've been going through. Like, there's changes happening there. Not everyone's going to be happy about them, but at the end of the day, if it's to make sure that that organization is healthy and can afford to employ everybody and send them to things like this, so sometimes there's a sacrifice that needs to be made. So.
Managing burnout.
I took notes on this one.
Burnout during change and uncertainty.
So I'm going to echo what others said about I know when I'm burnt out when I start losing patience with the things that normally don't bother me. I get hit with things all day long. And if I walk in and it's 8:01 and I'm already saying, are you kidding me? That's a sign that I need to take a step back. And I need to go home, I need to read a book, I need to go play some golf, I need to not talk to anybody for a couple of days. But the industry can make you burn out, but what's really hard is managing people. That's what burns me out more than that. Because again, I want everybody to be happy. I want everybody to be successful. I take it very personally.
Yes. It's almost, it just seems impossible to me. I swear to God, one more person says that to me. I don't know.
Well, and my thing is, what I always try to remind myself of is that when somebody comes to see me about something, they're looking out for themselves, which is what they should be doing.
Of course.
So I have to recognize that it's not about me, it's about them.
Right.
And let them have their moment, and then figure out how we can come to an agreement about that moment versus just being frustrated by the fact that they're having another moment, which is, that's when I know I've been burnt out, when I'm like, oh God, here we go again.
Right.
So.
Right.
But, burnout is, I know it's talked about a lot, and I know all of us feel it on a, pretty regular basis.
It seems to be really prevalent now.
And again, it goes back to what I said earlier about people wanting things immediately.
Yeah.
Immediate gratification.
It's tough to keep that pace.
It's very tough to keep that pace.
Yeah.
It's very tough to keep that pace.
How do you approach decision-making and delegation during times of change to reduce the risk of burnout for yourself and for your team?
I try to keep it simple.
I find, like for myself, I find I resort to, I'll just do it myself.
Absolutely.
I'll just do it myself, thanks.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah.
And that's, I know,
yeah.
I'm like,
I do that often too. I'm very fortunate right now. I have a great team of people who surprise me constantly by wanting to take responsibility and taking things over for me, because I've always been the one that's just done it by myself.
Right.
And I've had to realize that they're capable and they're eager and they want to do it, and just take a step back and go, okay, you can handle this, and then I just close my eyes and
Well, I think it's interesting, right? I think it's interesting because once upon a lifetime, I don't know if everybody remembers that the Eastern Mountain Sports used to be at the Holyoke Mall. I managed that store for them.
What haven't you done?
Well, you know what? Can I even share this?
I feel so boring.
I have driven a tri-axle dump truck. How about that for a test? Anyways, where was I talking? Oh, Eastern Mountain Sports. And I lost my train of thought completely. What were we just talking about? Sorry.
Burnout.
I'm the MC.
Burnout.
Oh, burnout. What the heck was I going to say? Oh, that's gone. Eastern Mountain Sports. Managing the team. Oh, there's more one way to get a job done, right? I had any given moment, there was a staff of 30, and being the master delegator is great, but you also have to be willing to let folks take the chance and the risk of doing it their way. And I really was, I don't care how it gets done. You understand the end result that I'm looking for and the quality of the work that I'm looking for. So, see ya when it's done. And it was way more efficient for me to do that in the end.
I think as we get older, we find it's almost fun to sit back and watch.
It is, and then the other thing too I realized when I was there was that, it's not always going to work out either. And when it didn't work out, I didn't spend a lot of time figuring out where to put blame, just to understand what happened and how can we together fix it. So being willing to take the hit so that this person can grow and learn. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So burnout. What advice would you give women leaders who are struggling to maintain their energy and focus amid ongoing uncertainty?
Boy. Don't quit. Take care of yourself. Being a leader, whether you're whatever you are, is really hard because the brunt of everything falls on your shoulders. And you just can't give up. You just can't give it. If this is what you truly want to do and this is what you really believe in, then you just can't give up. But the other part of it, I've had a couple conversations with women who are much younger than me, and I'm amazed at how much better they are at prioritizing their self-care. I'm very proud of the fact that women have realized that that's important. It wasn't, I'm going to be 53. I had my children at 24. I did not take care of myself. I worked, I took care of my kids, and then I laid on the couch and watched cartoons with the kids. I'm just so proud of women who take the time now to take care of their bodies, to create hobbies that bring them joy outside of their responsibilities. And I think as a society, we've just opened up to that so much more. And, I have a 21-year-old daughter, and I just can't, I'm so happy to see what that's going to look for her as she gets older and finds her passion or her career, and what she's going to be able to accomplish, because she will have so much more support than even I had, 25 years ago. And then, somebody who, came into the workforce 40 years ago, how they had no support at all. So I just think it's amazing to me how that's changed and how that's getting better. But the most important thing is just take care of yourself. I have one team member who, she works so hard for me, and she bike rides. And, the weather's, it gets dark now at 5 o'clock. We close at 5 o'clock, and she's like, I can't bike ride anymore. I go at lunch. She's like, oh. I said, bring your bike here, leave it in the building, go at lunch. I go, you need this bike ride for your head. I need you to do this. And every week, even though this week was a little chilly, I hold her to it. I'm like, you need this. And she's older than I am. And I'm like, I see the look on your face. I see that you're not in a good headspace. Go on a bike ride. I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't care if it's 9:30 in the morning. I want you to be healthy, and that includes physically and mentally.
I love that. That is a gift. That it really is a gift.
I can't do that for every employee. Like, I can't have my receptionist go on a bike ride at 10 o'clock.
Right.
But this person has a position of some authority where she can have that flexibility.
Right.
She's worked for
and
it.
there
She
may
earned
be
it.
some other thing that this other person will need or can do, right? Might not be that to that extent.
Right.
But every little piece of all gifts are important.
Right.
Right?
There's a little sanity in the day.
Right. And so here's a question. What is it that you do for yourself to have those little moments of sanity during the day?
Oh, I was going to say, I play golf, I go to meetings, and I drink wine.
I know, well, I do that. I don't play golf, but I do drink wine.
During the day, I have to leave the building. Like, I just have to leave the building because I can just bury myself in work, so I have to leave the building. Recently I started Pilates, which I'm loving, and so that's one thing I've started in the past couple months that I'm doing for myself, just to give myself some peace of mind and some physical activity, since I can't golf 2 days a week because it's so cold. So, but during the day is hard.
Yeah.
During the day is hard. I'm not great at working from home. I know people who do it fantastically, but when I'm home, then I start noticing that the dishes need to be done and that there's a load of laundry that has to come out of the dryer. I get too distracted at home. So when I'm in my office is when I'm in my zen, in my work head. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so how about change in vulnerability? I can't even say it. Can you say it? Vulnerable. No, right? How do you approach vulnerability as a leader during times of change and uncertainty?
So I don't like showing vulnerability. I don't know if you can tell that about me yet. This is very vulnerable for me to be sitting up here.
Well, we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, this is hard for me.
This is a big deal.
But the people I work with have known me, most of them, for a very long time, and they know that I try to be very honest with them about what's going on. We're a small company. We're 30 people.
Family.
Well, I don't like to call it a family.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I have reasons for that.
Oh, okay.
We're a small company, but we all know what's going on in each other's lives. Like, I want to know if you're not feeling your best, because it's going to affect how you work throughout the day. Doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily say go home and get under a blanket, but we can talk through it and say, you know, I get that you're not in a good headspace right now. What can we do to help you? People have things going on in their lives with their families, their children, their health. And I'm fortunate that I own a small enough company where I can be aware of that and I can hopefully help them through it.
How many employees do you have?
30.
That's substantial.
It's perfect.
Nice.
Size.
Nice. What role does vulnerability, I'm going to say the V word. Well, now we have to get confusing.
Yeah.
Vulnerability.
Careful.
In building trust with your team.
So I worked for somebody for a long time that was just very stoic, never showed emotion. And you know, when you work for somebody like that, it teaches you to be the opposite of that sometimes. And that's what I've tried to learn from that experience, which is that you need to share things with people. You need to let them know that maybe you're not really sure about the direction that we're going, but we're going to get through it together, rather than just acting like everything's fine all the time.
Do you think being vulnerable builds trust?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, again, I'm going to point to Deb, because we've known each other a long time, but Deb and I have had very, honest conversations with each other about things going on, because she may not agree with what I'm doing, and I have to be very honest with her that that's okay, you don't agree, but this is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing. And at the end of the conversation, the goal is to reach some sort of an agreement that we can either A, agree to disagree, or she can just realize I'm right and we can move on.
How do you balance being vulnerable with the need to project confidence and stability?
I don't necessarily think it's a balance. I think it's just who you are. I just try to be who I am. I try to lead with kindness. At the end of the day, one of my mantras is I would rather be happy than right. And if I have to be wrong in order to maintain that happiness, then I'm okay with that. And I think that shows through, because I don't have to be right. I don't have to be right. Well, I just said to Deb, I'm always right. But I think when you believe that about yourself and about what you're doing, people recognize that and they respect that, because they realize that it's not about your ego. It's just about, I just want to be kind. At the end of the day, I just want to be kind. In whatever situation I'm in, that's what I want to be remembered for, is, and I think kindness can project confidence. I don't think you have to be a certain type of personality to be perceived as confident. And it's taken me a long time to get to that because I grew up in a world where confidence was portrayed in a very unique manner.
Yes.
Being stoic,
Yes.
never let them see you sweat,
Yes.
never let them see you cry, never show any emotion. And I think that's an outdated model.
It's very outdated, and I think the biggest lesson that being a massage therapist gave me was the understanding is that that's not how I want to go through my life. You know, when I was with Aetna, which is a big corporate, you know, it was very, you know, everything was separate. Your emotional life does not have a place with your professional life. And you know, we are emotional beings,
Yep.
right? And I chose massage therapy because of that, so that I could be more connected to my whole self, right?
And you know, I have kids, so I worked while my children were little. I was very fortunate. My parents were retired and they were able to help us raise our family. But there were days where I got no sleep. And people they can see it on your face. They can see when you have, you know, a child at home that maybe isn't thriving. They can see it on your face. And if you try to hide that when you're at work, it just makes you seem disingenuous, right? So if somebody comes in my office and they need me for something, I'm okay with saying, listen, I'm not at my best today. Can we table this? I hear you, I get what you're saying, but can we just table this? I got no sleep last night. I had, you know, a child up all night sick. I'll get to it, but I think they appreciate that because they're going to be in that same boat maybe at some point.
Well, not only that, but they can understand that you're at this moment not able to give them 100% of your focus, which is what they need, right?
And again, the same thing, like we have a lot going on because we've had a lot of retirements. And somebody will come in my office and be like, this, and this. And I have to say to them, okay, I hear you. However, I have this, and this that has to happen first before I can even give you the brain space to work on that project. And to be able to say that to them versus just going, it's none of your business, I'll get to it, I think opens a door of communication that's always needed.
Right. And it shuts the window for them to be connected to you.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Authenticity. How do you define authenticity in leadership?
Again, I want to try to make sure I don't repeat the things other people said. You know, I really liked what Bern said about look at people as humans, and that's kind of going back to my leading with kindness idea.
Yeah.
I think when you show people who you are, they believe you. But the other part that I think is very important is consistency. As a leader, they have to know they can rely on you to be there. Not somebody who is absent, not somebody who just shows up during the good times, but is there, you know, answering the phone because the receptionist is out sick, or, you know, changing the toilet paper in the bathroom. It's as simple as that, but that consistency of knowing that they can count on you to be there, I think shows that you really take what you do seriously and you believe in it. And I think that's authentic. I never expect anybody to do a job in my company that I can't or won't do myself.
Yes, that's huge.
I've never been that person. I used to say the only two things I don't do is change light bulbs and take care of toilets. Those are the only two things I wouldn't do, change a light bulb and that other thing.
I don't blame you.
That's it. But everything else I'm perfectly able and capable and willing to do.
Yeah.
I just have an amazing group of people that work for me that do it much better than I do.
Good for you.
So.
Good for you. Let me see here. What advice would you give to leaders on maintaining their authenticity during times of change?
Just, where's my friend Lindsay? Stay in your lane. We've had that discussion of just stay in your lane. Stay in your own lane. You know, there's a lot going on around us. There's a lot of people who are much more successful than I am, that run much larger businesses that I run, that have, a sourdough starter that's 3 years old. Like, there are people that have amazing things going on in their lives. I can't spend my life comparing myself to them. I stay in my lane, which is this is what we do, this is how we do it, this is how we're gonna move forward, and I think that as a leader, that's something that you should strive for, is just to stay in your lane.
Do you ever find it to be a challenge to stay in your lane?
99% of the time.
That's your
It's
mantra.
hard.
That's your mantra.
Yeah, I really try to do that because I could make myself sick worrying about what everybody else is doing and how they're doing it and why they're doing it. You could make yourself sick.
Yeah.
And again, we're not the biggest company, we're not the most successful company, but we're a good company with great people, and we provide an amazing service to this community. The other thing that's very important to us is supporting our community. We try very hard, and I'm a firm believer that if your community is successful, my business is successful, and my employees are successful. So whatever we can do to support, whether it's the things that I've been involved with Burns, whether it's Cooley Dickinson Hospital, whether it's the East Hampton Learning Foundation, all those things tie into making our community strong. And that to me is, as a leader, if you can focus on believing in something, then you're going to be authentic whether you try or not.
Very nice. What are you trying to build now?
You want me to be so I'm trying to learn how to crochet again. So right now I'm building a blanket, okay? That's what I'm working on. Sanity, but it's my sanity. So every year I try to...
Self-care.
Yeah, I try to make, not a New Year's resolution, but something I'm trying to learn. Last year was how to bake bread. This year is crocheting. But as far as I'm trying to, as far as work, I'm really trying to build our brand going forward in a world that is very digital and very fast and 24/7. I'm trying to build a brand of a company that people realize we're going to be there for you on the weekends. If there is a fire, my family, that means my husband and my children, they hear fire trucks. Even my kids are like, oh, where's fire? We go. We go. If we know about it, we go. And that's the service we're trying to build. That's the brand we're trying to build. Is it convenient to go online at 2 o'clock in the morning and get a quote? Sure. But do you want somebody there holding your hand when the fire trucks are there or when there's water pouring into your basement from your bathroom?
That's the human piece that
human
we just
piece
saw.
That's
the human piece that you bring.
That we try to, right?
To your community.
And we're not successful of it 100% of the time, but we try really hard to be.
Well, exactly. And I don't think any of us is 100% of the time, hit the mark every single time.
Right.
But, A for effort, man.
Yeah.
We just,
all you can do.
we maybe came up short this time, but next time we'll do better.
That's awesome.